We are still in the middle of Perek Beis, Chapter 2, Mishna Zayin, Mishna 7. All right, so again, typically when we have to catch up, let's just read through the Mishnah quickly, so just get a little bit more of a sense of the case that we're talking about. And then we'll quickly read through until we get to what to what we need to do today. So again, the beginning of Mishnah Zayin, Perek Beis, Mishnah Zayin, Mishnah 7. Chaim shekitzu shtei achayos. Two people made kedushin, betrothed two sisters. Ze'enu yodea eisa kiddush, v'ze'enu yodea eisa kiddush. Each one doesn't know which sister he married, but we do know definitely they're married. Ze'nois shnei gittin, v'ze'nois shnei gittin. Each one has to give two gittin, one to each woman. Each woman there's a question whether she's married to him, and therefore, in order to free her to marry anyone, they both have to give her gittin. Now, you have to give her a divorce. Mesu, if these two men died, and again, these two men we're talking about are not brothers. The two women are sisters, but the two men are not brothers. Mesu, they die. L'za'ach v'l'za'ach, each one has a brother. Z'chayletz l'shteyim v'z'chayletz l'shteyen. Each one does chalitza to both of them. L'za'ach v'l'za'ach shnayim. One has one brother, one has two brothers. Hayachid chayletz l'shteyim, the one brother does chalitza on both women. V'ashnayim, and the other two, meaning the one with the two brothers, echad chayletz v'echem yabim, one does chalitza, one does yibum. Kinbu v'kinsu, if instead of doing that they both went and married, each one married one of those women, emutziyim miyadam, we do not take them away from them. This is where we are up to. Okay? So now, before we read the case itself in the Mishnah, let's look at the diagram. Just maybe that'll help us get the case. Okay? Before we get into the actual halacha. So in this diagram, okay, you've got the two circles in the middle. Those are the two sisters, Rachel and Leah. Those are the two sisters. These are the two women who, now, on each side of them, there's Reuven and Chaim. I gave them the name as Reuven and Chaim, make it clear they're not brothers. Mm-hmm. These are the two brothers who made kedushin on one of these two sisters, but they don't know which one did what. So, Rachel can be married to Reuven or Chaim, or Leah can be married to Reuven and Chaim. They don't know. Okay? In our case now, today's Mishnah, each one of those brothers has two brothers. They've got two brothers. Reuven, to the side of him, is RB1. That means Reuven brothers 1, and RB2, Reuven brothers 2. Okay? On the other side, you got Chaim. Okay? Chaim's got two brothers. We call one CB1, Chaim brother 1, and CB2, Chaim brother 2. Okay? That's the setup. That's the setup. And again, both Reuven and Chaim made kedushin on the two women, on Rachel and Leah, and they don't know which one. No one knows which one did which, and both of them have two brothers. Now, just look at the bottom. Don't worry about the lines and everything yet. Okay, just look at the bottom. On the bottom, there is no more Reuven and Chaim because they both died. Okay, they both died. So the only ones left are the widows. We don't know whose widow they are, Rachel and Leah, but we're left with the widows. And we're left with two sets of two brothers, right? Now, each one of those two sets of brothers doesn't know which woman has fallen to them for Yibam, because we don't know which brother betrothed them. Okay? So both Leah could have been if Leah was the wife of if Leah was the wife of Chaim, then she fell to Yibam to Chaim's brothers, and Rachel fell to Reuven's brothers, or it could be the opposite. Okay, it could be the opposite. So this is the scenario that we're going to deal with. Okay. Now, before we read in the Mishnah, I just want to point out one thing. None of these brothers can go and do Yibam on any one of these women at this point, because they don't know if it's their sister-in-law or not. They don't know. And it could be, and if that's not their sister-in-law, and they marry this woman, they have transgressed the prohibition of marrying a woman who is connected to someone for Yibam. So right now, it's very clear just to go and marry, one brother to choose one brother to choose the other, not a choice, not a possibility. Because at this point, they don't even know if it's their sister-in-law or not. And if it's not their sister-in-law, then that means she is connected to Yibam to the other set of brothers, and they can't marry her either then. Okay? So that's the situation. So let's read now what the Mishnah says is done in this case. Okay? Lazeh shnayim v'lazeh shnayim. Each one has two brothers. So what do? Says the Mishnah. Achiv shalzeh chayletz la'achas. The brother of one is going to do chalitza to one of the women. V'achiv shalzeh chayletz la'achas. The brother of the other man is going to do chalitza on the other woman, meaning one of the brothers from each of the sets is going to perform chalitza on one of the women. One brother from one set is going to do chalitza on one, and the brother from another set is going to chalitza on the other. And then what happens? The brother of this one can perform yibam on the chalutza, on the woman that was on chalitza by this one. I'll look at the word, I'll explain it to the picture soon, just reading the words. The achiv shalzeh, and this one's brother, does yibam on the chalutza of this one. All right. Look back at the picture. See how I made those lines? Okay. I didn't want to copy exactly the art scroll because, but because I don't have all their graphics. But the point is like this. Okay. The dotted line, okay, that represents chalitza. That represents chalitza. Mm-hmm. Okay. So imagine that, okay, the way we have it here is the brothers who are closest in the picture to the circles, right? Reuven, brother one, and Chaim, brother one. Mm-hmm. Each one of them to go and do chalitza on one of the women. Mm-hmm. And in our case, and just in our example, we have Chaim, brother one, is doing chalitza on Leah, and Reuven, brother one, is doing chalitza on Rachel. Okay? Now, at this point of time, each one did chalitza. So now, where are we standing at? So we're standing at the following. We're standing at either, if let's say they did chalitza on the right one. This was their brother's wife. Okay, let's imagine this was their brother's wife. And they did chalitza on each one. So then, what are you left with? You're left with the fact that, if they did chalitza on the right one. So, if they did chalitza on the right one, then those women are free to go. Those women have been freed. And those. Okay, let me back up here a second. Okay. Let me read it to you from here. Just makes it easier for me. At this point, there are two possibilities. Either they each gave chalitza to their true yavama, their brother's widow, or they each gave a chalitza to the wrong widow. If each one gave chalitza to his true yavama, meaning to his sister-in-law who really did fall to him for yibam, then each becomes forbidden to both women. One because she is his chalutza, and the other because she is the sister of his chalutza. On the other hand, if they each gave a chalutza to the wrong woman, then that woman is really the yavama of the other set of brothers who can do yibam. Meaning, now that each one, again, CB1 and RB1 went and did chalitza on each woman. Now, if each woman was actually their brother's wife, which means they did a 100% proper chalitza, okay? Each man now, those two men who did chalitza cannot marry any one of those two women. Because, first of all, if it was your sister-in-law, and you did chalitza to her, you can't marry her then anymore. And your brother who didn't do chalitza can't marry her either. Because if it was a good chalitza, then it was his sister-in-law who now was freed, and he can't marry her either. Right? The other woman is the sister of the woman he did chalitza to, and he can't marry her either. So CB1 who did chalitza to Leah cannot marry Leah or Rachel. RB1 who did chalitza to Rachel, he cannot marry Rachel, nor can RB2, the other brother, marry Rachel. And CB1 cannot do Yibam, cannot marry Leah, because it's a sister of his chalutza. That's all if it comes out that what they did was right. And if they did it was wrong, right? They did chalitza on the woman that belonged to the other set, right, to the other brothers. Then the other brothers, it's their yavama. Go ahead and do yibam on her. Now, what the Mishnah says is, once you go ahead and you have the two brothers doing chalitza on the sisters, the other brother now can marry the other brother can marry the woman that the brother of the other one did chalitza on. Meaning, look at this picture. You have RB1 did chalitza on Rachel, CB1 did chalitza on Leah. The lines that I drew, the straight lines, means marrying, doing yibam and marrying. CB2, Chaim's second brother, can marry Rachel. Because again, if let's say, because being that chalitza was already done on Rachel's sister, see, right? It was already done on Rachel. Let's back up here for a second. Let's back up it. The reason why now he can go ahead and marry her, okay? He can now CB2, Chaim's second brother, can now marry. Actually, not Rachel. He can marry Rachel. Why? Because again, if Rachel was his sister-in-law, no, I'm mixing up. I'm getting confused for a change. Let me read it from here. Okay. Now, each man performing the yibum, right? Each one with the straight line, is either marrying his deceased brother's widow, true widow, right? Either I'm really doing yibum, or the other man's widow who was already freed by a chalitza is now permitted to remarry. Meaning, if now, like I said before, you cannot marry the woman. You cannot marry the woman that your brother did chalitza on, but you can marry the woman that the other brother did chalitza on, because if she is either your brother, it was your brother's wife, you're doing yibum. If it wasn't your brother's wife, it was the other brother's wife. Well, the brother from that brother already did chalitza and freed her up. So she's just a free woman to marry anybody she wants. Mm-hmm. That's what's happening here. Okay, that's what's happening here. What's happening here is that after each one does chalitza, what now happens is that the other brother can marry the woman, meaning Reuven's second brother can now marry the woman that Chaim's first brother did chalitza on. Because, as we say, Manavshach, if it's really his sister-in-law, his brother's wife, fine, he's doing yibam on her. And if it wasn't, it was the other man's wife. Well, the other man's brother gave her chalitza. And therefore, if she really was that brother's sister-in-law, he already freed her to marry anybody she wants. Therefore, the Mishnah says in this case that what we do when we have these two sets of brothers, what we do is a brother of each of the men does chalitza on one, and then the other brother can marry each brother does chalitza on one, and then the brother of one of them can now do chalitza that was done by the other man's brother. Okay? I think that will be enough for today. We'll continue with this tomorrow.
I'm stunned.
Chofetz Chaim. Okay? I did the best I could with this picture. What's the matter? Okay. So the first thing the Chofetz Chaim had mentioned was that if you spoke Lashon Hara about someone and the people didn't accept what you said about that person, that means the person wasn't damaged. The only tshuva you have to do is between you and Hashem. But if, let's say, the people listened to what was said, what you said about that person, and that person was now degraded because of that. You know, should I give names? We had enough names and different people. If Reuven spoke about Shimon in front of a crowd, and Shimon was now, and the people of the crowd accepted what he said about Shimon, that means he was now niskana, he was now degraded in their eyes. And this caused some kind of a damage to him. physically, monetarily, or cause him distress. This now falls under a sin between man and his fellow Jew, like stealing. Yom Kippur, the day of death, will not atone for that sin until he appeases his friend and gets forgiveness. You have to therefore go and ask him for forgiveness. And then once he has been appeased and truly forgives you, the only thing left now is the sin between man and God, between you and God, the Yasa Canal, and do as above the 3 steps, which is charata. You have to have regret, you have to confess, and you have to accept for the future not to do it again. So the point is that you spoke Lashon Hara about someone, and that person was now affected by what you said. That means you've hurt that person. Then you're not going to be able to be atoned until you first get forgiveness from that person. You got to get forgiveness from that person. Then you're left basically just with the sin, so to speak, just with the sin that you didn't do what Hashem said of not speaking Lashon Hara. And for that, you go through the process of tshuva between man and God, which is to regret, to confess, and to accept for the future. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
All right, go back to the chart.